Pleasure is so important. I really believe that because I think understanding what your intention is when engaging in some sexual activity, I think no one teaches us that enough. And a lot of the times, some people, I've even had times where we do things for validation or for instant gratification. And I think having that awareness about why you're doing something can be very informative or instructive or empowering.
Sexual Health Alliance presents the Sexology Lab, exploring the science of sexual wellness and human connection.
Hello, everyone. Today I'm here with Venus O'Hara. Welcome, Venus.
Thank you. It's such a pleasure to be here.
I'm so happy you're with us today. I want to start out by having you tell us your 30-second origin story. How did you find your way into being like a pleasure product expert and podcaster? And when did you realize this is my specialty?
I was working in real estate, luxury real estate at the worst time. And I had lots of clients who had online businesses, and that they really inspired me. So I set up a sex blog, venusohara.org, in 2009. And very soon after, I had my first book deal, and I started to collaborate with lots of media outlets. And then, as my media profile grew, I started to receive lots of free sex toys. I put two and two together and started making sex toy review. Yeah, for so very long time ago. And then now it's evolved into sex toy design, pleasure, education, a podcast, and yeah, online courses, all of those good things. Mhm.
Oh, amazing. All right. Can you tell us a little bit about the different things that you do? So, you are like a pleasure product expert. You also have a podcast. You've written a book. Tell us about all the things.
Well, I'm a Gemini, so I have lots of different interests, and I don't want to really reduce my interest to just one thing. I'm very creative, so I'm using my voice. I am a meditation creator as well on Insight Timer, the world's number one meditation app. I have a podcast. It's a top 5% podcast in the world. And I'm also a writer. I'm quite active on Substack. My website is 16 years old as well. I've been writing reviews and erotic stories for many years. And I'm also a YouTuber. So I've been on YouTube for about 11 years making review videos and some lifestyle ones as well. So it's different because some days I feel like not being seen and just being in, jogging bottoms or sweatpants all day. On those days, I'm the writer. And then other days I put makeup on, and those days I'm making the videos and things. So I really respect my biorhythms and do the task that kind of responds to whatever I'm feeling, which is kind of good to have that flexibility.
Oh, yeah.
Mm.
Amazing. So, can you tell me what's one trend in this industry that genuinely excites you?
I think I'm just always excited by new pleasure paradigms. I've reviewed over 1,000 toys since 2014. I think there probably could be closer to 1,200 at this point. And people always ask me, are there really so many different ways to have an orgasm? And that's the biggest question I get. And I say yes. So I'm always excited to not only experience new things, but also to write new things. Because I mean, writing a review can be very repetitive if you're just doing vibrators all the time. So I'm just so excited about things like the trends of toys that are no longer vibrating but that move or that use air. So these are interesting trends, and I think something that's very interesting as well is the trend of wearables and how a wearable is not so much about orgasm, it's about the complicity and the tease with your partner. I think it's a really interesting phenomenon because I remember when I first started discovering toys, I think at the time the rabbit was the biggest selling sex toy in the world, and many people would say, "Oh, I don't need that. I've got a boyfriend." Or even I would encounter some attitudes that were, people that thought that a sex toy replaces a partner, which of course it doesn't. So now I think with these wearables, you need a partner to make it more fun. It's kind of
Yeah.
just a lot more fun if you've got someone else pressing your buttons, and that creates a lot of connection, complicity, and a really good build up for potentially, for foreplay and then having sex when you get home if you're in the supermarket pressing buttons. It's just a really exciting phenomenon. So I really like how pleasure paradigms are expanding. That's what excites me the most. And also materials are improving, app control, things like that. Mhm.
Oh, yes. So, do you have like a favorite type of toy, not necessarily a brand, but something you recommend to people like, hey, you should try this type?
It's difficult because it's probably like parents say they don't have a favorite child, but I don't have I think it's really important to change it up and have as many different types of stimulation as possible. Because what can happen is that you only use the same thing over and over because it works. And that can apply to types of stimulation without toys as well. I think it's very important to actually change it up. And that happened to me. One of my first rabbits broke, and I was about to have an orgasm. And that was a blessing in disguise because then I learned to actually have with my other toys, which were like
Mm.
bullet vibrators or layons. And I learned something very important, which was it wasn't so much about the toy, but about my mind body connection. And now that I've really cultivated that, I can pretty much have an orgasm with any toy because I have this inner narrative happening. And that's what really rules, not
Yeah.
so much the toy. So I think it's really important to change it up. So for me, I'm really happy discovering new things. And I just tried something today, which was like a tongue that's like moving up and down. And usually moving toys can be quite problematic because when you press them against you, they stop moving. But this one was just amazing. So it's the first time I tried something like with like a tongue, and it was incredible. So even just today, I've tried something new. So that's pretty incredible, really.
Oh, I love it. That's such great practical advice. All
Mm.
right. Now, if you could teach the world one key insight about this field, something that really moves the needle, what would that be?
Something I like to say a lot is that a sex toy is not a product; it's an experience. And I think that's really important. And I think, for example, a sex toy represents, let's say, hope for someone who, or a couple who've lost the spark, or someone who's never had an orgasm. And I think that's what I really want to convey with my work, because I think a lot of people assume that sex toys, or that they are not, that they are frivolous, or not necessary, or
Yeah.
that they are cold. That's something that I've heard a lot as well, because some people assume that it's replacing a partner, which of course, they don't. But it's really about focusing on sensation and connection to yourself as well. So I think that's something that I would like to, it's a big misconception that it's just an object, or it's just frivolous, or it's not important, but pleasure is really important.
Oh, absolutely. So
Mm.
at Shaw, we train many people who want to work in sexual health. What's the most important thing the professionals need to know about pleasure products?
So it's just knowing all the ways you can use a particular toy without having to have a massive collection like mine of 1,000 toys, which of course no one needs 1,000 toys. So I think that's really important, is to kind of know all the ways you can use a particular toy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, like, if I'm a sex educator, it's not really enough just to say, oh, go out and buy a toy and that could help improve your sex life. So, you really need to know like the different types of toys and how to instruct your clients or whoever you're working with on how to use those.
Yeah, and also there are certain toys which are very versatile. For example, a rabbit vibrator can be used for dual stimulation. You've got the big shaft inside the vagina and the external part on the clitoris. But that can also be used completely externally as a perineum stimulator.
Mm.
So having it just between the thighs, so you have the rabbit going against the clitoris at a different angle. You can also use the shaft to stimulate the clitoris, or even to massage the body. So, and even anally. So there are at least 5 different ways to use a rabbit vibrator. Also, the typical phallic vibrators, people just assume that they are for internal use, but actually you can use them externally, using the tip just to caress your body, rolling it as a massager, and then just teasing the entrance of the vagina, the vulva. So there's so many ways to use each toy, and I think that's really important, especially for someone who's learning about their own pleasure response. It's about, really experimenting, not just doing what it's supposed to do, because maybe that doesn't really agree with your body. So having that versatility and the curiosity as well is really important.
Yes,
Mm.
definitely. So, as a sexual health podcaster, do you
Mm.
have a couple favorite topics that you just love to talk about?
I think for me right now, I just love the topics around relationships
Mm.
and how, and especially communication. I think it's so important, interesting to see. It's fascinating how two people speaking the same language can have so many disagreements or misunderstandings. So I'm super interested in how the tools that people use to communicate better. And something I learned quite recently for a podcast guest earlier this year, someone called Dr. Rachel Glick, who has a book called A Soulful Marriage. She has a whole section on leveraging conflict. Because I think sometimes single people can be afraid of conflict because they think it's going to be painful and,
Mm.
complicates your life. But in fact, if you know how to have an argument or even create what she calls a conflict constitution, when you have these frameworks in place, I think the fear of misunderstanding or something not being quite right is just goes away, and you can use that opportunity to connect deeper. So I'm really interested in that personally because I'm a student of love, and also I think this is very much connected. I think sexuality is connected to many things which are not about sex, you know. So
Right.
I think it's like the basics or the foundation of relationships and of many parts of life: well-being, self-confidence, self-love, etc. So I'm also very interested in the non-sexual application of sexuality. That's something that really fascinates me, especially after so many years in this industry. You know, how it affects your personal life, your psychological well-being, your self-esteem, your body confidence, all of those things. So I'm really interested in that.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And I think a lot of us are not taught how to have conflict effectively. Maybe we grew up with examples of people avoiding conflict altogether, or when there's a conflict, it's, very emotional and people are yelling and screaming. And, we're never really taught the correct way to resolve conflict or to deal with it. And I think learning that skill as an adult is very helpful.
Especially listening and not always me, you know, and just learning to listen. And I think it's fascinating, and just learning to reassure as well. I think it's super important to know how to reassure us. I read something the day about how we judge others on their actions and then ourselves on our intentions. And we should never, just assume just having good intentions is enough. Sometimes you have to think about, sometimes there is a miscommunication of those intentions and it has a negative effect on someone. So it's having that awareness, and also just the curiosity to grow. And that applies to any area of a relationship. That can be the sexual side or just the communication or just to how to spend a Sunday. I think that's super
Yeah.
interesting. So I think for sexuality, I think, our sexuality evolves and changes over years, and also according to how your life evolves as well, if you're going to have children or not, or what your schedules are, and having that continuous curiosity to explore and play is super important, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I want to talk to you for a minute about podcasting. So, about how many episodes have you done?
I've done about 144 and I've got nearly 6 months already recorded. So I'm
Wow.
so blessed because I'm working with some incredible PR agencies in the US, and they send me amazing guests. I mean, really high profile guests. I have a whole shelf here of books of from authors that I've interviewed, and I'm a real big bookworm. So I read books and then I speak to the authors. And it's interesting because the orgasmic lifestyle is not just about orgasm or climax or even sexuality. It's about reaching climax in all areas of life. So I wanted to kind of get out of just being about sexuality. 'Cause I do think sexuality can be more digestible when it's presented as a lifestyle topic. Just the same way as when you buy a magazine like Cosmopolitan, no one's thinking it's a X-rated magazine because it has all these other topics. It's got,
Yeah.
it's got fashion, it's got beauty, it's got relationships. And my podcast is like that. So I tend to do sexuality on full moons because I follow a lunar schedule.
Yeah.
And then I do some meditations as well. So I'm also interviewing people who are experts in the fields of spirituality, wellness, nutrition, etc. So sexuality is like presented as something that's very organic, orgasmic, and yeah, and a part of a healthy and fulfilling life.
Yeah. Who do you think is the most memorable guest that you've had on your podcast?
I've had so many incredible guests. I've also had Dr. Tara, who's part of this. She's
Yeah.
been on twice, and she's really inspired me with my time management. Because
Ooh.
she's I interviewed her about in 2023, and she talked about how she divided her different tasks according to the day of the week. And I do the same thing now with different tasks, but I do Monday, Thursday content creation, and then Tuesday digital products, affiliate marketing, content, online courses, Wednesday business development, Friday podcast. So it's kind of
Yeah.
good to get all in on one topic. 'Cause otherwise you have a million things to do and none get done. Other high profiles would be Layla Martin. That was a big high profile I had earlier this year. And I've also interviewed some people. I'm a neuroscientist who's going to be speaking about aging, the aging brain, and how sexuality
Ooh.
can help with that, which is really fascinating. That will come out next year. And also some celebrity nutritionists, people who are talking about how nutrition can affect fertility, which I thought was so interesting because I've done so many episodes, and not one of them when we're talking about sex for procreation, which is, if you're, I grew up with a Catholic upbringing, so that was
Yeah.
only the only purpose of sex. it wasn't about pleasure. So it was super, super interesting. These different, yes. So I'm really fascinated to talk about different types of sexuality, different, and it's also sexuality and relationships that I don't really ascribe to myself personally. I'm a bit of a voyeur, so I'm kind of interested to see what other people do. And some interesting guests have been in the space of polyamory, which is really
Yes.
interesting for me because I'm not. It's not really my relationship style, but I'm really curious about that. So I'm really fascinated by my podcast in general, and because I'm in Europe and my guests are in the US. I tend to have quite late meetings and then I can't sleep after because my brain is just
Yeah.
so stimulated. I'm like, wow, that person was so inspiring. So I really love that part of my job. Mhm.
Oh, yes. So, why do you think it's important to have sex and relationship podcasts out there in the world?
Well, I think as many of my peers will understand, there is lots of censorship online. So the only thing we really own and have control over is an email list or a podcast or a website. And I think that and the podcast is a place where we can get real, because a lot of
Yeah.
the time I try to just I'm not too like sex positive on my social media. I'm kind of like focusing more on my lifestyle tastes on social media, which is also a big part of who I am and what I want to convey. But with the podcast, I just feel a bit more unleashed. But the same with my website, venusahara.org. So I think that having a podcast is super interesting and important for that reason, just so we can educate without having to, spell words in a different way or, all these things that people have to do online. We can just get real and then speak with other industry peers and share the message. So I think it's really important. Mm.
Yes. Oh, I totally agree with you. All right. My last question for you. If you could leave one message for the next generation about sexual health, what would it be and why does it matter right now?
I would say pleasure is so important. I really believe that because I think and understanding what your intention is when engaging in some sexual activity. I think no one teaches us that enough. And a lot of the times, maybe some people, I've even had times where we do things for validation or not necessarily, or for instant gratification. And I think having that awareness about why you're doing something can be very informative or instructive,
Yeah.
or empowering. And also, I really believe in the importance of teaching the power of masturbation. I
Mhm.
think that's super important because sometimes masturbation can replace bad sex. I
Yep.
think, so I think that's really important because wasn't taught that, and my message to people is really to tap into what your body wants and to know what your body wants. Because I wasn't taught that at all, and I know how important it is. Because I think my whole life changed when I knew how to give myself orgasms. It was like this, and also with many people that I've coached unofficially, I've guided so many women to their first orgasm. I've told them what to do and what toy to buy, and I have some protocols. And then a few days after, I'm like, "Did you try? Did you try?" And they're like, "No, no, no." Then I stop asking, and then one day comes, they're like, "Oh my god." And it feels like they're just completely transformed. So I know how important that pleasure education is and how empowering it can be just for how you feel in your body, how you show up in other areas of your life, especially related to confidence and how you make decisions in your emotional life. That's what it was like for me because I was in a situation where I was tending to choose toxic partners, great sex, emotionally toxic. But then when I discovered sex toys, that kind of liberated me. So I want to share
Yeah.
the same learnings with other people.
I love that. What a great message to leave on.
Mm.
Well, if you're watching this and you want to learn from more experts like Venus O'Hara, check out our upcoming events on our website at sexualhealthalliance.com. Thanks for being with us today, Venus.
Thank you so much. It's been a
All
real
right.
pleasure.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.